to A Well-Designed Business. My name is LuAnn, and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company Window Works from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to A Well-Designed Business. Today, I have such a fun show for you. Barry and Jordan, the Brownstone Boys, are here. And I have to say to Meredith Huck of House of Huck, thank you so much for connecting me with these guys. You said I would love them, and you are 100% right. And now I'm connecting them with you. You're going to love them. Have you ever wandered through Brooklyn or New York City and marveled at the beautiful brownstones? Maybe you've even said, love to have one for myself. Well, that's exactly what Barry and Jordan did. And today they're here to share the story of how they turned that thought, that dream, that wish into a reality, and then turned that thought, that dream, that wish into a business. Now, you don't have to be a brownstone enthusiast to know about the Brownstone Boys. They have exploded in success over the past several years, starting their blog and the Instagram account detailing their own brownstone renovation. And today they are not only restoring brownstones across Brooklyn and New York City, they're also influencing design and our world of design while they do it. These guys have first of all, they have such a beautiful dynamic between them. And then their story is so much fun. And it might resonate with you listening because their business was built a lot like the way many of you have told me how you built your business. One opportunity at a time. Sometimes you don't even know that you're starting a business. That's what happened with them. But then you see the gaps in the market, you see the opportunities, and you take some risks. And risk is hard, but it is how we grow our businesses. Doesn't always end up rosy and perfect, and that's okay, because that's how we learn. I think you're going to learn a lot from Barry and Jordan today. We talk about growing a business organically, implementing systems and processes so that it can thrive, and how to balance life and work when you work with your life partner. It's an adventure, I can tell you that. I'm really happy to share this interview with you. Hi, Jordan. Hi, Barry. Thanks so much for joining me on A Well-Designed Business today.
Hi, LuAnn. It's Jordan. Thanks so much for having us.
Hey, LuAnn. It's Barry. We're excited.
Okay. I'm literally giggling because we have been having so much fun. The interview isn't even started and we're literally
so
ridiculously giggling, laughing. Okay. So I'm going to try and concentrate now. All right. Here's the thing. I read that you guys had a first date, but then I don't know if I read this part or you guys ended up telling me and all this craziness and are talking ahead of time. But within 7 months, you were in business together. and so I have to hear this story. Tell me this story. Who wants to tell it to us?
Go ahead, Barry.
All right, I'll start. So Jordan and I met in 2017. So we've been together for a little over 6 years. And we really quickly learned right after we started dating that we had this mutual passion for Brooklyn and for Brownstone Brooklyn and for these beautiful old, 150-year-old buildings. And we both had our kind of crazy backgrounds in architecture and design. I went to architecture school. I'm an architecture school dropout. Didn't make it through it. I moved over to the College of Business and went into software sales, but kept my passion for architecture and design together and started, bought my first little tiny apartment and renovated it. And Jordan has his own background in design that he can share with you. But when we got together, we decided we were going to buy a house together. And not only that, we were going to go through a major renovation and design the whole thing ourselves. And so it was a quick start to a relationship, and I think it made us stronger for it.
So the thing is, I remember reading about the date that you guys went, I think, for a bike ride, and you were both calling out and noticing the brownstones, and then you were just like, wait, I love brownstones. You love brownstones. Like, that's pretty crazy.
It was definitely a serendipitous. This is Jordan, by the way, and it was our second date, not our first date.
Oh,
Our first
okay.
date was to a bar, and when I met Barry, and this might be TMI, but I knew there was something very special. But I quickly wanted a second date, and we took that bike ride, and it was only supposed to be down to the Brooklyn Bridge, but we were like, you know what, let's go through different neighborhoods and kind of extend. I think we were both vibing together, and that led us to bike down all the brownstone streets in Brooklyn, different neighborhoods. And I think we were I think it was Borum Hill, actually, where I told Barry, I was like, oh, my dream is to live in a brownstone. And we were approaching a stop sign, and he was like, did you just say that you wanted to buy a brownstone? And I was like, well, I dream of buying a brownstone, but I don't think my money is going to allow me to
Not the
buy a
easiest thing to
brownstone.
do, right?
Exactly. So he was like, it's actually one of my dreams as well, too. And I just looked at him, and I kind of thought in my head, I was like, this is probably someone that I could get a lot of information out on how to buy, because he had already talked about him buying places. And I just had been saving every penny that I literally made in hopes to buy someday an apartment in Brooklyn. So that kind of switched our conversation really fast to our admiration and love for brownstones.
That's crazy. I mean, it's funny because I'm just even thinking about my relationship with Vinny. I mean, we met and we were at a bar, a dancing nightclub back in the 80s.
Fun.
And I was with a group of women and he was with a group of guys. And you know how you dance together and as a group, and then all of a sudden it's too crowded, and all of a sudden you're, kind of like paired off with somebody. And it wasn't anything crazy, except that after one or two dances, it was like so hot. And he's like, I want to go outside and, get some air. You want to go? And I have to tell you, I thought to myself, you don't want me to go and get air with you. You're just being polite. Like, you're not like making a move on me. Like, you're just like, oh my God, like I have to get air and I have to invite this girl with me because, right. And that's literally, I followed him out. And also he's 15 years older than me. So part of me was like, and I don't really want to go get air with you either, because you're old. The guy was 20, he was 35, And so, but the thing was, we went outside at like 11 o'clock at night, and when the place closed at 2 a.m, we were still standing there talking.
Wow.
And that's when so I think it's, as we go through more of your story and what it really means, that 7 months later, you were in business and in buying this home. Like, there are times when you just meet somebody and you're just like, you're my person. And you don't say it that first day, because that would be crazy. But in your heart and in your head, you're like, I really think you're my person. Like, I really do. Right? It sounds like that's what it was for you guys.
I like to believe that that's how I felt when I saw Barry. We both came from, I think we met at a time in both of our lives where we were kind of needing to meet each other, just from our previous relationships, or, just how we were both mentally alone. And for me, I definitely needed Barry at that point in my life. And I know this isn't a relationship podcast, but I definitely think that.
Yeah, they're right. It is. It's whatever we want it to be. We're in charge.
Yeah, that same feeling that you met when you had that talk with Vinny at 2 a.m. is kind of how I felt with Barry on that first date. And that was so grateful that we took that second date on that very long bike ride throughout Brooklyn, because I really do believe that kind of changed both of our lives.
Yeah, and for me, I felt like it was that way from the very beginning. So we chatted online for a couple of weeks or so before we actually met in person. And I feel like it was like that from the very beginning. We hit it off, even just kind of like chatting and talking, and it felt like it was going to be something even from from before we met. So, like it took off very quickly, and it was, not only for our relationship and how much time we spent together and how much time we wanted to spend together, but obviously everything else that came with it, aka buying a house, starting a
That's the thing.
business. It's been fun.
Right. So that's the thing. So we're going to, fast forward to 7 months, right? And now you guys, so it's not as if you just like, I mean, you buy a brownstone together, and was it like, this is a business, we're going to start a business, or I think, did the business come from document, like, get us to that whole
Yeah.
thing.
So I want to say month 3 or 4 into our relationship, we had decided that we wanted to buy a place together, which seemed pretty crazy. And I remember I didn't even tell my parents and I talk to my parents every day, because I really was still kind of questioning myself in my mind. But Barry came from a background where he was very smart with his money, and he had bought his first small apartment years before we had met. And he kind of, he collected all of his change to buy that small apartment. And I told him that I had been saving and I had a small amount of money put aside for me to put into a place. And I think that's when he proposed this idea of us buying a larger property, aka a brownstone, together, because, of the importance of real estate and how that can kind of grow our money together. And I knew that this would be the only opportunity that I would have. So I want to say that's when we kind of began the search. And in that period is when I start researching like crazy, everything you needed to know about renovating a brownstone. And I noticed that there was a huge lack of information out in the internet about specific to historic renovations in New York City. So I thought, I was like, you know what, let's put all of the information that we learn out there through our renovation. And our money, was spent basically purchasing the house. So we had to get very creative on how we were going to renovate this house. And I knew a lot of that work was going to have to be with our own hands. So that's when I was like, you know what, let's turn this into a blog that people can not only get information, but hopefully it puts us in front of the community that's also wanting to kind of go through the process that we're going through.
I love it. So I love the fact that, first of all, what I heard in there a tiny bit was, even at 3 months, you just expressed your confidence in Barry, right? So you would love him for the rest of your life or not, but objectively, you were like, this is a smart guy and he's trustworthy and he probably knows as much or more than I do. And I'm happy to look to him for a little bit of that information. I mean, that's what I heard. Is that what you were thinking?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. You're 100% accurate with that. And like we said earlier, when you know, and I knew that even if our relationship wasn't going to last, I knew that he was still invested in me financially for me to succeed.
Yeah. Like I love it. I love all the things. And so now you do this. And of course, I also love the thinking ahead of, I love that we're going to do this for us. We're going to do this. We're going to provide this information, and there's a gap. So the information is probably going to hit and land places, and let's see what happens. And so is it a minute? It's a year. It's how long until people start to go, oh, the Brownstone Boys, like they're a thing.
I remember we were sitting in Jordan's apartment. So it was actually after I sold my place. So we were like on this path to buying this house, and I sold my place that I had, a little 1-bedroom apartment, and moved into Jordan's place like just for a hot minute, like temporarily. And we were sitting in his living room, and he was like, I have an idea. And he told me about his idea, to blog about the renovation and to tell our story and to form a community. And he had the name picked out, Brownstone Boys. And I thought it was an amazing idea. We didn't know where it was going to go. We were like, maybe our friends and family will read it. Maybe we'll get 3 likes on Instagram. Who knows? And we made our first blog post was the day that we closed on the house, and the blog post was about closing. The title was something about we closed on our house or something like that. And so that was our first blog post. And very, very soon after that, we built our little website. We did it all ourselves. We published our first blog post, and I would say within about a week or so, Brownstoner, which is a local Brooklyn real estate and kind of brownstone renovation blog website. It's pretty popular in Brooklyn. Reached out to us and asked us if they could run our blog. Basically, they were going to like simulcast our blog on their website. And that was a huge deal to us. I mean, I've been reading Brownstoner, and Jordan, I'm sure too. We knew Brownstoner well. You know, we lived in Brooklyn. We loved Brownstone, Brooklyn. It was something we're very familiar with. And so we're like, what? We just wrote one blog post. This is crazy. And that was so fun. And it gave us like the motivation to write a blog post every single week. So I think for 2 years after that, we wrote a blog post every week. And so it had a lot of content that built really quickly, and that gave us the ability to kind of get some momentum behind it.
So just from like the back end business part of that, like, so you were still putting the blog post on your own website, or at that point you're like, no, they have the authority. We'll just be like guest columnists on their website.
No, we were running the blog post both on our website and also Brownstoner. It was the same copy, it was the same imagery, but what we would do is we would publish our blog, and then because Brownstoner has a much larger following than we did at the time, they would go ahead and then just run it the following week after our blog post was published. Yeah.
Interesting. See, this is not a program about SEO, but my brain goes, doesn't the googly man not like that? But we don't have to go down that road. Obviously it works. So
yeah.
You know?
Yeah, they were running it, I think, as a different,
Okay. So what's interesting is that I also want to just observe is that you're only, again, we're, 6, 7, 8 months into your relationship, and you do this. And then when Jordan suggests that you make a blog out of it, obviously jackpot idea, and glad that you did. However, that's also a moment, like as a new couple, that it's sort of like, well, like we could start this big thing, and then in 6 months we could be in such a hot mess, mad at each other. I mean, through WindowWorks, I have gone through hundreds of couples renovating and building a home, and it's very hard to stay nice through the whole thing. Like so many couples just end up at their throats, let alone not having multiple years of knowing each other and knowing your other person's all their hot spots. You know what I'm saying? So
Absolutely.
I think it's an amazing testament to your inner voice. I think your gut feeling on the two of you and of each other and the potential of your relationship. So good for you. I love that.
Thank you, LuAnn. And I knew it was definitely a risk that we were taking, but I also knew at the same time that I was like, I'm probably going to learn everything I need to know about Barry through this renovation. And, it was definitely one of our biggest purchases, let alone we did it together. But I was like, it's also a true test of like, how is he going to react when we get a price of this, or if we can't literally carry the steel in through the house together and he loses it? Like, I knew I was going to learn every single thing about him through this renovation.
That's right, because you do learn also each other's values, right? So your human values, that's fine. You've already discovered that. But I mean, one person thinks is, you have to have it. The other person is like, we absolutely don't have to have it, right? It's like, so, that's also you're learning in real time. I know that with Vinny, after 40 years of being together, it's the type of thing where I could pick the thing he's going to say, we don't need that. And I'm going to be like, but I want it. And then I'm like, oh, all right. Well, then I guess we need it. You know what I'm saying? So, okay. All right. So now, so you do this, and you're learning incredible lessons, and you are getting more and more well-known. And what happens? Do you end up doing other people's work well before you even finish your own work? Or do you finish your own work and then you're like, hey, we could do it for you too?
So I want to say it was about 3 months into when the blog had started being published on Brownstoner. We were getting a lot of people in the community reaching out to us, asking us lots of questions, and we were giving lots of advice. We were giving our opinions on, oh, that price seems high to us, that price seems accurate. And then also just like personal renovation stuff, which tile they should go with, what tile maybe they should think about.
Jeez.
And finally, that's when Barry looked at me and he was like, wait a second, I think they're asking for more help. And I
And we
didn't
can
understand that.
monetize this.
Yeah, and Barry's like, we should really monetize this. And we both had full-time jobs. So that, like, totally aside from, Brownstone Boys. So that's when Barry suggested, he was like, I think they need more help and I think they want us to help them.
Wow.
So that's when I looked at Barry and I was like, should we kind of consider taking this on as a project?
And with
Right,
some
Barry?
of the emails that we would get from people, I mean, we really felt like we created a community around our projects, which was a very cool feeling. And it ramped up very quickly. And it was just so amazing that people were reaching out to us and asking us all these questions. And, we were learning kind of along with them at the same time. So we were kind of putting it out there. If we had questions, we'd put it out there. If we learned something that we thought was really cool that other people could benefit from, we'd put it out there. And we were getting all these really great questions, and we were giving people referrals for architects and general contractors and wood strippers and plaster workers and, tile recommendations and all kinds of things. But some of the people that reached out to us really seemed like they needed more than that. And sometimes we always joke that we got so many emails where the subject is "please help." And so, we felt like we should, maybe we should help people. Maybe we should do this. Maybe we should help people even more. We feel like we have all this knowledge and we have learned all these lessons, and all these people are going through it for the first time and looking for the type of help that we might be able to give them. So one person reached out to us that
That's
just
crazy.
specifically seemed like they really needed the help and they wanted to work with us. And so we decided we would take the plunge and write them back and say, do you want us to help you do it? And we told them we've never done that before. You'll be our first client. And they were all for it. And so that we took on our first client, and very soon after that, we had a second client. And then not too long after that, we had a third client. And around the third client is where we sat down and talked about, should we do this full time? Should we literally quit our jobs that, wait, we're still kind of working on our house and paying for it, but should we quit our jobs and actually, decide if we're going to start a business? And we both took the plunge and did it.
So thinking about this trajectory, by the time you get to this third client and you're now thinking, wow, should we quit our day jobs? How far? What are we, months, a year in? How far are we in?
I want to say it was 8 months to a year in of our personal renovation. That's when we decided to quit our full-time jobs and pursue Brownstone Boys full-time.
And your own personal renovation, was it completed at this point, or you're still doing that?
It was, I want to say we were done with phase one. We hate the phase word, but that's where we were with the project. We still had a whole laundry list of things that needed to be done, but we were in a good place that we were able to move in and kind of start making it a home.
Okay.
There was definitely 100 million things to be done around the house.
Because you see the things that normal humans don't see, right? You want to make it better and better each time.
Yep.
So Barry, I think it's awesome that you recognized, that there is the difference between, Dear Abby, fix my problem, and hey, we actually can come out and make a business out of this and turn it into something that we monetize. My question is, being, it sounds like, I'm just going to call it, you sound like the money guy, right? What did you guys go to any colleagues, anybody to figure out how to price for your services? Or did you just let me throw a number at you and see if it sticks? I mean, not that we all haven't done that at some point, so it's not a judgment. I'm just curious how you did it.
Yes, so we did speak to a couple of people to try and figure out where we would fit into the process. We have an architect friend that helped us out, and then we also have a designer friend just to kind of talk about, we were curious where we would fit in. We're helping people through the process. We're not architects. At the time, we weren't really calling ourselves designers. We've sort of evolved since then. But, we were like, where do we fit in? What's our part of this process? And so we called ourselves project managers. So we were managing these big projects of renovating a whole townhouse, a whole brownstone. And so we felt like it was a little different than all of the roles that were out there. And so we did kind of invent it ourselves. We kind of decided how we were going to price, how we were charging people, what role we were going to fill. And we felt like we were doing it a little bit differently. And we actually do still do it very similar in a similar way. We bill in a similar way. We charge in a similar way. We've tweaked it slightly, but we haven't really strayed too far from the way we originally started.
You know what I love about your stories, the two of you, what you're sharing today, is there's two times, like you said, just now you said, where do we fit in? We were looking to see where do we fit in. Do you like you have a business background, so it's just so clear that the business background keeps popping up for the two of you, right? Like when you were like, Jordan has the idea, like there's nobody teaching people about brownstones. We should blog about it. And then you, before you jump in and start quoting, it's like, where do we fit in this process? We're not the architects. We're not the this. We're not the that. Like, what is it? And these are the questions that when we, talk to people and we counsel people and we help them grow and build their business, you have to start with these fundamental questions, which is, what is the gap? What is the reason for me being in this space? And what is that person's pain point? And how come and why am I going to be the answer to it? So what's so funny is this is why I love doing this, because other people have conversations and I have the conversation and I'm having a great time, but I'm like, oh my God, that's like a total business thing right there. I love when I can see the through line that a person in their journey that ends, well, it's not an ended journey, but that you've got the success. You see, you've not normal success. And people think, oh, it's because, maybe they're cute or they're this or that. It's like, no, there are actual business fundamentals happening in this process, even though the process was really based on emotion and passion for a brownstone and each other and all these things. But it's always that step back that you guys seem to do, whether it's by design or just great instincts. But it is really fundamental to, I think, why the Brownstone Boys are the Brownstone Boys now. Do you agree? Do you hear what I'm saying? Does it make sense?
Loud and clear. Yeah. And I think that we're actually talking at a very interesting time. And these last couple of months, we've done a lot of business strategy because we're at a really exciting time in our careers where, our business is, in my opinion, booming. But it also is a time for us to reflect on what we are enjoying and what we're not enjoying, and how we quickly develop a system that works for us. And Barry and I have had conversations that I've never even thought I would be talking to my prior bosses about, just like on what direction we want our business to go and how we're implementing and how we're providing clients the structure that they need to have a successful renovation. And we've listened to a lot of your podcasts and a lot of the experts in the space, just because we always want to do what feels authentic to us and what feels authentic to the community that we're trying to be part of. And I think a lot of that has to do with listening, and every client is going to want different things. And for me, it's so important. I think that one of my roles in whatever service, whether project manager, interior design, owner's rep, whatever you want to call us, is client interaction and client, therapy almost.
Yeah,
and for me, that's
client experience, right?
Experience. And it's something that's super important for me to have a successful home renovation. And our projects are 9 months to a year and a half, and we are deep in a relationship with our clients. And for me, that is so important. And no matter how many systems we implement, I still want that one-on-one authentic relationship with our client.
I love it. So when you think about what is, just for somebody maybe listening that isn't familiar with your work and what you do, just explain your core business. Are you doing strictly brownstones? Is it strictly gut renovations, or you will just decorate and design? Give a little rundown on who's your ideal client, the kind of projects that you say yes to now.
Yeah, so our ideal client is full gut restoration, renovation of a brownstone or a townhouse here in Brooklyn or New York. So that's 90% of what we do. We have clients that they buy the entire brownstone and it's usually in horrible condition, needs a ton of work, but there's beautiful historical details and, gorgeous things to restore. Sometimes they need a lot of love, but bringing back that beautiful woodwork and the plaster work, sometimes stained glass and the hardwood floors. And then we also love building in those like modern details as well. So we like when those two things intersect. And so that's what I think we've become known for and why our clients reach out, because there are these big, audacious, crazy projects of renovating these 150-year-old buildings that need so much love and restoration, but they also want them to function for their modern families. And that's what we do. So that's our ideal client, but we do some other things. We'll do some smaller projects and some apartment projects. We did some loft spaces and things like that. And we always do look out for those unique projects because we do brownstones really often and we love them, and that's what that's where our passion really is. But when someone approaches us with a project that's very unique, we'll jump on that too, because that's always fun.
Okay. And then, so do you also do all the way to completion with the furnishings and the design and the decor, right?
We do.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yep.
So what is next? I mean, is this like, hey, you talked about like we're talking about, I don't know if look, if it's private, you don't have to tell me. But I mean,
No.
is it
We're an
like
open book.
do you see a pivot or do you just see leaning into? And I'm curious about that question. And then I'm also curious about the back end and how the business runs. So we can go with either one first.
Yeah, I mean, I think we would love to look at more brand licensing deals. I think that's something that's very exciting for us. We love content creation, and I think that's a whole nother side of our business that we've been very fortunate to become part of that community, and we love it. And I think there's something really special about anybody that wants to live in New York. For me, as a kid that grew up in Las Vegas and saw New York on the background of my TV, and I knew when I saw Sesame Street that I was like, I want to live in one of those buildings.
That's so cute.
And I think that if we can highlight just the beautiful diversity in New York City in any sort of content way, whether it be as small as Instagram or as big as TV, for me, that's something that's I would love to tell that story, but also just focusing on these really beautiful renovations and working with some really great clients.
I love it. Universe is listening. Yay for you putting it out there, Jordan.
Yeah, got to manifest it, right?
That's it. And Barry, your thoughts on all of that? I'm sure you're in alignment, but I'm just curious what more resonates with you and where do you see the future?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree with more with what Jordan said. So we kind of act, we always talk about how we have two businesses. We have everything we just talked about with all of our renovations and our clients. We have a couple of employees on that side, designers and project managers. And then we have our content creation and everything we do with YouTube and Instagram and TV. We had a couple of episodes of TV shows out there on the Magnolia Network, and we'd love to do more of that. And that's kind of like we're kind of like equally focused on both right now. Like Jordan said, we're going through a stage where we started our business and it happened very organically, and it was kind of an accident, and we kind of made it all up as we went. And it's been several years, and right now we're at a point in the business that we're going back and like really building in some structure that we should have a long time ago, and putting some processes in place and making it a more easily repeatable process. And getting some of our billing stuff, worked out. And so we're doing a lot of things now that we should have done a long time ago, but it's good that it's getting done. And at the same time, we're like,
as long as you do it.
we're looking to create more content and tell our story and get it out to the world and help people, motivate them and encourage them to renovate and to build their space and to make their homes beautiful. And so we're doing both of those things.
I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. So I was going to ask you about the back end. So here's what I'm hearing, right? So now there is usually a come to Jesus moment in a business, right? Where you're like, "Hey, that was all great, but this is like now to handle this volume," or you look and you think about, mistakes that you've made and, places where you've dropped the ball, and then what I always say about system and process, because like I'm not the system and process girl either. I have a reputation, but I'm an evangelist for it. I am not like, it's not natural to me. And, I was with Vin, and Vin is a system and process dude through and through. Like literally his personal life, his business life. It's like, I do this when that and that when happens. It's like it drive you to drink, honestly. And sometimes I just look at him, I'm like, you are a nut job. Okay. But it is, but it is, you see the value of it. And that's what I've learned from him over the years. So you get to this moment, and there's a lot of your colleagues that are listening, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm at that moment too. And so, are you putting do you use Asana? Do you use ClickUp? Do you use Monday? What does your back end look like, and how are you structuring that and restructuring it now?
So up until very recently, we were on Google Drive and Google Sheets and lots of Gmail, and we didn't really we sort of like made some spreadsheets and things that helped us through the process. But we just recently got onto Asana, and that has already started helping a lot tremendously.
Huge game changer.
There's so many little details happening in any renovation project, but especially in the ones that we are going through, because they are really big projects that take a year to a year and a half to get through. So that's been a really big game changer. And we're about to implement a design software as well. We haven't actually chosen which one yet, so we're kind of going through the process of looking at a whole bunch of them, but we know we need it. And so we're putting those two systems in place very soon.
Yeah, no, that's good. And so what does the team look like? It's the two of you, and are your roles very defined? Are you in one lane and each other in a lane?
Yes.
Talk about that.
Yeah. Barry handles a lot of the construction management. He deals with the contractors way more than I do. And I think that's the business background in him. And he's just really knowledgeable when it comes to all of the construction materials, cost. I deal with more of the interior part, the design, the client interaction, the notes. I will be on site with Barry, and I'm usually the one that stands in the background documenting everything, just for follow-up, because that's a whole job within itself. And then I love creating lookbooks. So on my free time, I'm either dealing with client therapy, or I'm the one that's just putting together all of the lookbooks with. Right now we have 3 people on our team. One just came on recently, but Carrie, who is our design director, joined us 2 years ago. And she is an architect by training, so she deals with a lot of the elevations that are needed in our projects. We usually work with an architect that files our job, but then all of the interior elevations are stuff that are under our belt. So we work very closely with Carrie on that. And then we have Ryan, who is a project manager and kind of helps assist Barry and I. And then we just hired our first creative position, which has been a huge lift off my shoulders, because I also am the one that handles all of our social media. And she helps with ideation and content creation, and kind of keeping up with socials, whether it be Instagram, YouTube, TikTok now.
Oh, geez.
I'm sure tomorrow when this podcast comes out, there will be another program that we all need to sign up for. But she's researching all those things that kind of will help us grow on that social side.
That's great. I love it. It's so good. So my brain goes to any lessons that come to mind. Good, bad, ugly, anything. And don't overthink it. Don't go for like, oh my God, the most significant lesson I could ever share, right? Just like a thing that you went through or you've learned in setting up the business, or in relating with clients, or in just a new endeavor, or in the interaction and the managing of the personalities of being in a partnership, both personally and professionally. Anything come to mind?
Barry, you want to go first?
Yes. So I think that starting on the client side, one thing that we have learned and are really trying to do our best to implement is just communication with clients and getting ahead of things. Sometimes we can take that for granted when we're going through renovation projects and we kind of know what's going on and we think we have our head wrapped
Mm.
around what's happening, but the client doesn't, and they makes them feel a little uncomfortable, and they have questions they don't feel like they're getting the answers to, and so we try as hard as we can to stay ahead of that and to provide as much information as we can, and we've learned the lesson the hard way to do that.
Yeah.
Making sure our clients
Mm.
are updated, and so that was a lesson learned, and that's part of why we started implementing lots of these processes and systems and things to help us do that and to help give our client that really great experience that they might expect.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. You do learn that through, I mean, you've listened to the podcast. We talked about how you guys do listen to the show and you've probably heard it 1,000 times. But
Yep.
then the first time your client is super pissed as opposed to, hey, I haven't heard from you, but that really crazy lunatic and they're just going nuts and you're like, what is the problem? And you're like, well, I haven't heard from you in 3 weeks. And you're just like, oh, like I could have called you or I
Yeah.
could have emailed you. Like I
Yeah.
didn't, like you just, that's when, and the thing is too, what I noticed too is because believe me, even after you get systemized, things fall through the cracks. And, 40 years Window Works is, and I just had to say somebody recently, I'm really sorry. I see that we dropped the ball here. No one reached out to you. I'm sorry. It's one thing if you don't have the system to do it, you don't even have your head above water to recognize. It's another thing when you have the system to do it and you don't do it. It's like sort
Yeah.
of like, okay, now what? Right. But the point is, to what you said, you got to do your best. You got to show up every day and do better. But having the checklists and having the processes at least helps you a little further along. But I think no matter how many times you hear somebody on this podcast or somewhere else tell you it's important, it's not until you get your first real lashing by a client that you're like, okay, that's it. We believe
Hmm.
everybody now. We got to
Yeah.
do this, right? Because
Yeah.
it's an easy fix, just communication, isn't it? That's the thing about it.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is. And, Barry and I took a risk together. We're business partners, but we're also life partners. And I think something that I'm really excited for with the new processes is us separating or trying to separate work from our home life. And I'm guilty because when a client emails us at, 10 p.m., 11 p.m., I will bring that, if they're frustrated, I'll bring that frustration into the
Mm.
couple hours that Barry and I are trying to turn work off. So I'm excited for these processes, and I think that that's going to be a big game changer in our relationship. Not that
Mm.
I think we're in a good place right now, but I think that it will be helpful, and I think that's advice that I wish that I had heard when we started our business together. If
Mm.
you are thinking about going into business with your partner, it's just kind of making sure that you guys have a separation.
Yes. So what you're saying is, are you describing that before implementing these new processes, either one of you expected the other one to answer at all hours, or the other one would answer and then bring the problem over to the sofa, and now you're complaining about, and one wanted to say not after hours? Is that what it is? One of you was like,
Yes.
okay, so you were like, I'll do this 24/7, and Barry's like, there's limits.
How did you guess? How did you guess that right, LuAnn?
Exactly. I do have to say though, I will say, like, when it comes to being in business with your significant other, a lot of people ask us, it's probably our most asked question. How do you do this together? How is it being in business together? And it's an amazing question. And so many people will say, I could never do that. I could never be in business with my wife, my husband, my partner. But I love it. I think it's amazing, and it's definitely difficult, and there's definitely things that we have to like talk through and work through, and there are difficult times. But I think it's just really cool to be building a business with a partner and to be going through this
Yeah.
together and to have this thing that's our own. And I just think it's amazing. And I think all the pros definitely outweigh the cons, and I honestly wouldn't have it any other way.
Thank you. And I agree. Like, it is definitely the best thing. And that first year, I was trying to control everything. And then once I let Barry flourish what he is really strong in, and I held back from what he's really strong in, and the same for him, for me, like he knew that I was the creative side and just to let me flourish in what I really was passionate about. I think that's when, we noticed that increase in our business, and like we were like, this works, and
Yeah.
let's manifest this and just move forward.
I
So,
love it. I love it. I love the growth. I love that you, and what it is it's funny because I've talked about it on the show before with Vin and myself. I mean, it's the truth. We have always loved working together. It always, like what you just described, Barry, it's like you're building something together. This is our thing we're doing. Of course, I don't mean to exclude our cousin Billy, right? But, it's us. We were like all day long and then all night long and all morning long and all Saturday, Sunday, everything. And the thing is, for us, it was always the same thing. It was just the things that were difficult, but they were definitely the good outweighed it always, right? And I mean, I always tell people, I've been on other podcasts where they've asked me about being in business with your husband and this and that and the other thing, and I always suggest that people establish warfare rules. Like that's what I call it, warfare rules. And it's like there's just certain things that you can and cannot do, and you cannot cross over the line. So you can never personalize anything, right? You can say, I don't like this idea. This idea has holes in it. This idea doesn't feel fully fleshed out to me, but it can't be. You always come up with dumb ideas. You see, there's a line there, right? And there's a difference, right? And then I'm going to echo what you said, for Vin and I, it was the same thing. It was finding out where his lane was and where my lane was, and giving the respect for the lane. And so we had this agreement that if it was the other person's lane, the other one could debate with the other one all day long for their position. I want us to do it this way. I want us to do it this way. I want us to do it this way. But like for us, the lanes are very clear. It's finance. Vinny's lane is finance. So I can want to buy a building. I can want to buy a building. I can want to buy a building. And if he's just like, we're not buying a building, guess what? We're not going to do. We're not going to buy a building. Right. And so, and there have been times where I'm like, like I remember when we bought our first building, he's like, we're buying a building. I'm like, that's crazy. We should not buy a building now. Like, blah, blah. And he was just like, yeah, I already signed the thing. And put your name here on the mortgage. And I'm like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But, but that's the thing. And ultimately, that's why I noticed in the beginning your trust in Barry. Ultimately, I have the same trust in Vinny. If he says we can afford it, we probably can. Yeah. And then I have also the trust in myself that if it gets hard, well, then I just have to go into sales mode and it'll be fine. Right. And that's probably you as well. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I can switch that on too. Yep.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah, it feels good. I think we're in an exciting place right now, and I'm so happy that we have these systems in place, and and so thankful we have community. And I think that's something so great that I find in social media, and even when we go to like High Point Market and different panels and we're speakers on it, it's just really exciting. We can't take on every single project, and it just we now have friends in the community that we can go have a dinner with and just kind of vent, and we vent to each other, and we go through each other's frustrations, and we lift each other up. And when one of our friends does really well on the social side or gets it's all this celebration. It's really beautiful to be part of this community, so I think it's really exciting.
Yeah, it is. It is fun. As I always say, you can start the relationships, you can kind of nurture them online and through social. But when we have that chance to be in person at High Point or Las Vegas Market or wherever we go, it really is. It's the glue then, right? And it's so fun. And for you guys to take the time to go out to the dinners with your community there in Brooklyn, it's awesome. And you have a lot of great people in the New York area.
We're very lucky to live.
Oh my goodness. So many wonderful, beautiful interior designers in the New York metro area that are just really great just good humans,
Yeah.
it's awesome. So I don't often do this, but I do sometimes steal the line from my daughter's show, Sass Says podcast. She ends it with saying, is there any question that I didn't ask that you wish I had asked you that you want to share before you go? And if there's not, it's
Ooh.
fine. But is there, and I just want to leave it where if you had one thing you wanted to say or add before we stop.
Well, if you were wondering about that second date we took on our bike ride, and now 6 years later, we also just recently got engaged, which is definitely probably one of the biggest achievements for both of us. And yeah,
How
so I think
recently is this?
this is like 3 weeks recent.
Oh
So it's
my
very new. We haven't even brought it to social media yet.
so you're
So
the first to know.
yeah,
Oh,
so aside
congratulations.
from us doing well on the business side, we're also very excited for the next year or two in our
Oh,
personal side as well.
congratulations. That's
Thank
so
you, LuAnn.
nice. You guys you get to have such good energy. You know what I mean? You just have a great vibe and good energy. And I'm so grateful that Meredith introduced us. I have to say, really cool. Yeah.
Amazing.
Barry, anything you want to say before you go?
Well, Jordan and I are engaged. Yeah, I mean, it's cool. I mean, I feel like we have done so much, and it's been amazing, and it's been a fun ride on a personal level for both of us in our relationship, but also professionally with Brownstone Boys. But I feel like we have so much more to do on both ends. We have we're getting married in the next year or so. We are building our business and hopefully gonna be on TV and all kinds of other things that we have going on out there. So I think that it's fun kind of like looking ahead and dreaming and realizing what's on the horizon for us. So should be fun.
I have to say, I agree with you. I agree. It's the beginning. As much as you've been through and as much as you've accomplished, I think there's, we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg with you guys. You just are coming at it in all the right ways. That's the thing. It's a very, holistic, organic approach. The love that's there between the two of you is so clear. And then the passion for what you do in your business is also clear. And the fact that you are, paying attention to the back end, that's what enables it to continue, right? You can have passion, you can have drive, you can have chemistry, you can have a connection with the greater community and they could be interested in you. But if you can't keep delivering on the promise of the experience of working with you, it can't all happen. And I love that you've got it all going on. And I'm just so grateful to get to know you and can't wait to meet you in real life.
I know. I hope we get to see you at the next show. I know you were just in Las Vegas and High Point.
I will be
correct?
in Las Vegas this summer. So I will
Okay.
be at that market for like a hot minute. And then, of course, I'll be at High Point again in October. So
Well, I hope we see you there in
Yeah.
real life
yeah,
next.
yeah. Thank you so much for joining me today, you guys. I appreciate you.
This was such a pleasure. I don't want it to end, but I know it needs to. So thank you for having us, LuAnn. It really means a lot.
Thank you.
So fun, right? I mean, I feel like I start every outro with so fun, right? But I'm having a blast. I hope you are too. And I just think it's so cool that they announced that they were engaged here. We got to share that moment with them. Before I share my other observations on this, I just want to make sure that you're thinking about LuAnn Live 2023. Yes, November 5th through 8th in Orlando. If you were with us in 2019, then you know the magic of this conference. This is not any business conference. This isn't come to a conference and maybe I'll show up for a session in the morning and then maybe I'll go and sit at the pool in the afternoon and maybe I'll go back over, in the afternoon session. No, 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 no. We are together this whole time. We are together. We are working together on our business. And I want you to also know that if you have yet to connect with anyone in the community, if you don't have a designer bestie, a colleague that you feel like you can reach out to and call or text if you're going through a happy time or a challenging time, then I promise you there's a pretty good chance you're going to meet that person at LuAnn Live. Because if you don't know anybody, I do not want you to think you can't walk through the door. I promise you, you will feel like you are among friends. This is the culture of our community. We know each other. We know each other's names. We are not strangers for more than 5 seconds. I promise you. If you're not sure, if you've never been to one of my live events, whether it's a Power Talk Friday, whether it's a panel discussion, whether it's been a big conference like this, then maybe you don't know it to be true. Take my word for it, 1. 2, you could go watch the docuseries that we put out. We'll put a link in the show notes, and you can see firsthand that I am talking the talk here. I am walking the walk and talking the talk. This is what I thrive on. I thrive on knowing that we have an actual relationship. And when you come to LuAnn Live, you are going to get not just the business information and not just the information about how to design a well-designed business within a well-designed life, which is the theme this year, okay? You are going to come away with friends. I promise you. And if you've been there before, you're coming back to reconnect with those friends. Okay. So some of the highlights. Okay. First of all, our keynote sponsors are Nancy Ganskalfer and the Profit Insiders Group. And we will put the link in the show notes to that episode where Nancy told us all about the Profit Insiders Group. And our other keynote sponsor at this point is Tracy Connell and her confidential, her higher level executive coaching that she's doing with you interior designers out there. Okay. So these are 2 rock star women that I know personally very well and know that they are changing designers' businesses through the work that they do. Okay. Now, you go to LuAnnLive.com to learn more about it. And then here's the thing. We've got Brad Levitt from AFT Construction coming. He's going to talk about how to create those relationships with builders. What does a builder need from an interior designer? How do you become valuable to a builder? How do you navigate the conversations? Okay. Then we have Cheryl Luckett. Cheryl Luckett is obviously I'm always going to ask her about her entrepreneur journey because I just admire so much the way she did it so thoughtfully and planned it and just strategized on it. But we're also going to be talking about licensing because Cheryl is a powerhouse in this area, and I'm sure that she's going to have some thoughts to share that will help you if maybe you're thinking about getting into this. And then, of course, we're going to have Rachel Bozick. He's going to be talking about personal branding and how you make yourself stand out. All right. And then, of course, my daughter Christy will be there, and she will be talking about the intersection of efficiency and ambition and mental health. Okay. So lots more. Go to the website, see all the things, LuAnnLive.com, and I hope to see you there. We're going to have such a great time. Okay. Let's get back to Barry and Jordan. Look, one of the things we talked about here was being in business with your partner, okay? And the thing is, what's interesting is that Vin and I are exactly like Barry and Jordan. We would not have it any other way. I don't care how many crazy days we've had where, we're just like, you got to be kidding me. You're thinking that? I never would ever want to have done this without him all these years. And they have that same chemistry and same desire to build something together. And I think it's awesome. Way back in episode 271, Vin and I actually did an episode together talking about this. And we also have done other podcasts throughout the years on that partnership, friendship, collaboration in business. So if you go to my website, LuAnnNigara.com, and you scroll to the podcast collection, Partnership and Friendship, you'll find other episodes about that if it's something you're interested in. All right. Now, I love what Jordan said about taking the leap on their own brownstone renovation together. He said, I'm probably pretty much going to learn everything I need to know about Barry through this renovation, right? And of course, any couple who has even so much as wallpapered a bathroom together knows how true that statement is, right? But they were risk takers from the beginning, jumping into this renovation so early in their relationship, hoping and expecting that the reward would be worth it, right? So let's back it up a little. Back to that bike ride. They both love brownstones. They get a little further in the relationship. They get a brownstone together. They decide to blog about the renovation. And as Barry said, this all sort of happened organically, almost by accident, until it didn't. When they noticed the gap in the market. Here they are in Brooklyn with as many brownstones as far as the eye can see, most of them 100, 150 years old, most need significant work. But where are the resources? Where is the information on how you go about renovating these beautiful properties? Well, there weren't any resources. And so they became the resource. This is entrepreneurship, right? Seeing the gap, recognizing the opportunity, asking the fundamental questions, and being willing to take the risk. Right? They didn't do this just once. They continued to assess where they fit in, where are the gaps, how can we close them. We had a great show with Robin Barron, episode 540. We'll put that link in the notes as well, where she talked about that process of how to analyze a market to identify gaps and then how to recognize if you are the person and if you have the solutions to fill that gap. Okay? It's a risk. You get exposed. It takes courage. But you know what? That's what it's all about, right? So, continuing, they start the blog. The Brownstone Boys are born. Blogs lead to big deals, just as Barry and Jordan explain. They've been featured on the Magnolia Network, HGTV, and more. And of course, they're excited to keep that side of their business moving with more content streams and influencing while nurturing the design side with more brownstone renovations. There is another episode in the archives, Power Talk Friday 692, with Fiona Moston, and we'll put it in the show notes. Fiona talks about how to leverage your blog for your design business. Now, this is a rapidly changing world, but if you are interested in blogging, check it out. Check out their blog too at thebrownstoneboys.com to see what they're doing that's good and how they're moving in the different directions with the YouTube channel and all the things. And, you know, anytime I refer you back to the back catalog for episodes on, you know, social media, tech, things like that, you always get like a grain of salt, right? Because the world is changing faster than lightning. So you go back and you take out what's still relevant and still good for the moment we're in, all right? Now, here we are. They've got the blog. They start getting requests for help. They decide to start this business. They have the big picture, the visionary ideas, the organic growth, but, you know, not quite by accident, right? The passion and emotion for brownstones and for each other might make it more romantic, but I don't think it was really accident, right? And how do you know I know? Because Jordan and Barry were asking the right questions throughout. Is there a need? What is the pain point? Where do we fit in if we are going to make this a business? All right. All the other things make the story fun and entertaining, but it is the business and the entrepreneur mindset from the get-go with this that is the reason that it works. I mean, the romance makes it work too. Don't get me wrong. But it's, you know, it survives because they're always applying and asking the business questions, right? So after getting to this point a few years in, where are they at now? They realize they can't keep the pace without firmly establishing process and systems. Hello, sound familiar? Right? You can't keep running it by the seat of your pants. You can't be the only one who knows the thing that you know. Right? That's what happens when it's just a you, when it's a you and maybe another you, right? You have two yous. You know, you have your lane, and you know what you know, and you're fine. But when you grow and the projects become bigger and the stakes become higher, it is absolutely essential and critical that you lock it down, right? And I know that many of you listening are in this exact spot. Right? It's a great spot to be in, right? Especially right now, because there are so many advances in tech and task management software and virtual rendering that can help you systemize more than we ever could back in the day, right? If you listened to the show recently with Sarah Daniele of My Doma Studio 879, she had a lot of great thoughts about where the industry is going and how we can use tech to make our lives even easier. Okay. And Magdoma just lost an launched an excellent task management component on their platform. Okay, don't forget the episode with Hilaire Pickett Martin recently where she talked about her go-to apps. We'll put that in the show notes as well. So just like Barry and Jordan are balancing the front and the back of their business with systems and processes, they're also learning how to balance each other. Barry handles the contractors and Jordan handles the clients. Jordan thrives on creativity and Barry gets down on the business side of things, right? So this is what entrepreneurship takes. It takes everybody looking and understanding what their strengths are, looking at your other person and seeing their strengths, and then looking around and seeing if you need to hire out some things, okay? They have a project manager. They now have a social media manager. They hire out the architect. The Brownstone Boys, Barry and Jordan, know their role. And because of this, they can excel in this. And then they can flourish and help the people around them flourish. I love it. All right. Please check out the Brownstone Boys. You won't be disappointed. You'll find them at brownstoneboys.com and at the Brownstone Boys on social. All right. And I'm just going to thank you again, Meredith. I know I did it already, but oh my goodness, I'm just so glad. And of course, Meredith was on the show as well. Another rock star, I'm just going to say, and you got to listen to her episode too. Okay. So thank you, Jordan and Barry, for joining me on A Well-Designed Business. I love what you're doing, and I love that you're happy doing it together. I'm really so excited to have this front row seat to see what you create next and where you go from here. All right? Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you so much that you do it. I can't do any of this without you, and I wouldn't even want to. So thank you so much. I'm grateful that you show up each week and share this time with me. Decide to be excellent. Thank you for joining me today. This podcast is a production of LuAnn Niagara, Inc. If you want to know more about me, my books, or LuAnn University, go to LuAnnNiagara.com. And if you are interested in having WindowWorks help you with your next window treatment or awning project in the New York, New Jersey metro area, go to WindowWorksNJ.com to learn more. Have an excellent day.